Let me read to you from Ephesians 4 verses 1 to 6. Therefore, I, the prisoner in the Lord, urge you to live worthy of the calling you have received, with all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing with one another in love, making every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. There is one body and one Spirit, just as you are called to one hope in your calling, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is above all and through all and in all. You know, communion vividly draws us back to our union with Christ and with fellow believers. You know, normally as we celebrate it in our church, our community of faith reminds us that as we follow Jesus, it's something that we do both as individuals, but also as a community as we come to the table and share the meal both together. We see it so tangibly. But, you know, as I've noticed, we've rushed to go online over the last few weeks and months. I've noticed that in some senses, it's actually easier to celebrate our unity as brothers and sisters in Christ. Here's what I mean. Previously, for our Simple Church Day, we've held the day in Sydney. It's been geographically rooted to a specific location. This year we haven't been able to do that. And the result is that people have joined us from all over Australia, from New Zealand, from the US, from Russia. We've heard stories about how one God who's called us into his body is working all over the world in such uncertain times. Now that's true for churches all over the place, right? Churches are rooted in their local geographic area, and yet right at the moment we're able to have people join us and celebrate with us from all over the place. And we should celebrate that we get to hear stories of God at work all over the place. We should celebrate that. But the thing is, I don't want to put my hope in the virtual world or in Zoom. You see, Jesus is a better hope. When he took the bread and said, "This is my body," and he took the cup and he said, "This is my blood," he gave us something tangible to hold, to smell, to taste, to digest. He draws us to the cross, his death for ours, his resurrection so that we can live now and when he returns. That's the hope that Paul calls us to be united in. One body, one Spirit, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is above all and through all and in all. As we come today, let's be reminded that Jesus, we're brought into his body, adopted into his family, that we're co-heirs with Christ and sent into his world to participate in his mission, that we're ministers of reconciliation, and that we're his ambassadors in his world. We're reminded that in a world that is shaped by a pandemic, Jesus is present. He stepped down into the world's great pandemic, sin, and is not only present, but through his death and resurrection is victorious. This hasn't changed, even in the midst of our uncertainties. Communion, the table, sends us out to live in a way that proclaims that God is with us through the cross to those we meet. That's the power of communion, the one hope that God is with us, that God is calling us, that God is not finished, but he is here.